she didn't rephrase my question. Please move some stuff in your diary so we can make this happen. Yeah. So what? So what if? Yeah. That's just what we were talking about with last. So what if? Okay. So if we set typically 3:15, meet us at reception. And lucky. Yeah, Lance seems to think it will be done by lunchtime, so there's only actually 3 more items to go. So how about on, let's work tentatively on 3:15. Okay, and I'll tell her to meet us out there, and I'll give Shane the ring and ask him. Yeah, that might be sensible, because well, this is what we're proposing to do. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly just to react. It's just a matter of maybe. Okay. Yep. 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 Absolutely. Okay.
Oh, that just. And actually, Robert is.
Did you get one of those cupcakes? Go on then. Do you want one?
No, it has dairy in it. All the good things right in that cupcake.
Can't you eat them? What can't you eat?
Dairy, sweet, and sugar.
Wheat or gluten? Oh. Normally the reason you can't eat wheat is because of gluten. But it's not your issue.
No, apparently it's the rest of it instead. But it's all the good things.
You can't eat wheat. Well, it almost hates you, man.
I don't eat the cakes, I just make them.
Okay.
It works for me. I can still make the cakes I like to make.
Who do I know about some really
In November, so you're going to miss a meeting.
One. Only one. So it's from the 2nd of November. So I've missed one of the trains. So one else.
So all you need to do, if you're only missing one meeting, or you're going through here, you're going to miss this one. It's all good, so just send me an email.
Yep.
Your colleague.
Yep.
If you like, but otherwise me and Andrew.
Yep.
And Gary is the chair of finance.
Okay.
Just note that you'll be away that time, and that means you're putting in your apologies. So you saw that amendment in your email?
Right. Okay, Council, we will start again, and we're going to make a few slight changes with your approval to the agenda. Because we've got visitors here, we're going to take the Matariki project and the Clarence Street Theatre Trust report before the playground, because the playground is a staff-led item. So we have now guest Joe Citizen, and you're going to, you want to introduce Nick?
Yes, thanks. Yes, thank you. We've got Joe Citizen from Wintec here today, and we've also had apologies from Tame Pakaya, who has been a major part of this project and a key advisor. So he's given his apologies. He's unable to attend today's meeting. So the report that we have today is the Matariki Interactive Waka project, which is being presented at stage 2 of the public art process. And this is the part where we're seeking approval for the artwork concept. The concept which Wintec has prepared at the moment is actually a lot more detailed and advanced than we would get at this stage. In the past, at this point where we've approved concepts, a lot of the time it's been sketches or a rough indication of what the artwork's going to look like, and it's been really good from a staff perspective that Wintec have gone above and beyond and have actually worked with engineers to get a real detailed design of what the artwork would look like, and that's made it a lot easier for a staff point of view for us to assess health and safety, potential maintenance, all of those kind of things. And we've also, we'll just pass it around, but there is a 3D printed plastic model of the court end structure. So I'll just pass that around. It's a 1-to-1 scale. It will be slightly bigger than that one.
Slightly?
Yeah. Slightly.
It's quite immense when you see.
Yes. Yeah. So at this stage, if there is any questions about the report, I'm happy to answer it. If there are any specific questions about the concept or the rationale behind the design, Joe will be able to speak to that as well.
Joe, would you like to, you've been a passionate leader of this process from the beginning, and...
Can I make a confession on this broken up? Sorry.
That'll cost you, Andrew. That'll cost you.
Not sure what to say.
So Joe, I went to that event at Wintec with their full-scale drawings and the video of it and how the lights work, and it was amazing. But what was really amazing was the process that Wintec and your other stakeholders have been engaged in. And I do think that's a story worth telling. So I just wonder if you wanted to take just 3 minutes or so to take us on that journey.
Yeah, kia ora koutou. So this is very much a partnership project between Māori Achievement and other stakeholders within Wintec itself. So primarily media arts, trades, engineering, School of IT, CBITE, with another researcher, and also early childhood education. And we've had really good buy-in and a project partner with Longveld, the engineering firm Longveld. So we have some of our students who will be working at Longveld, being mentored by them. So in many ways, this is a journey about how we're making it as well as the thing itself. And we're very much interested in having a relationship with the structure afterwards. So for instance, it uses a microcontroller sensor mesh network, and we're wanting to have some students engaged with that. So at the moment, we've got a third-year engineering student involved in part of that. Similarly with the electrical generation side, and also ideally would like to do a little bit of riparian planting or something like that to be associated with it. So we're actually really interested in having an ongoing relationship.
Yeah. Thank you. And I was very impressed with how many faculties of Wintec, you know, the education, the preschool, the Māori, and all inputted at various points.
Yes, it's a juggle.
Yeah, great. Councillors, questions. Councillor Mallett. Gary?
Excuse me, thank you very much. Just financial considerations. There's no, and you may or may not know this, there's no maintenance budget put in here for it. What sort of stuff would you expect for that? I haven't seen one anywhere.
Yeah. At the moment, what we've done is we've looked at the current maintenance budget that is scheduled and looked at the likely ongoing maintenance from the information that we have at this stage.
The current maintenance budget for what?
For public art. So
it
sits within the museum. There is an existing maintenance budget. And looking at, for a start, the court-end steel structure, it is going to be something that can be met within existing budget. We have other similar artworks that we're able to look at the maintenance cost, the real maintenance cost over the past 5 years. And for the Mesh Sculpture Trust, their artwork at Lake Domain, that is a similar scale, similar materials. And at the moment, that is, I would say, is our cheapest in terms of maintenance, because it is an artwork that, unlike other metal like stainless steel, it's not required to be polished up every year or so. It's already has a weathered look. At this stage, what we have identified in the report is that the electronic components, while not being a costly expense that would require an increase to the public art maintenance budget, it is still something that is an area where we've already identified that with Wintec that there might need to be a longer defects liability period just for that initial point if it is approved and if there is an installation. We want to make sure that there is, I guess, an agreement there with Wintec to work together over that point, so it's not just a handover and the council picks up the maintenance of the electronic components from day one.
Is the expectation that this is, by the sounds of it, you're using it to almost work experience for some of these kids, is that right? So is the expectation that that would continue on?
Oh yes, yeah. We'd like to have a continued relationship, in that regard. Yeah.
So that your students coming through could.
Well, particularly in the case with the sensor technology and also with the IT side, because they're both areas where technology continues to evolve. And the idea is that it's possible to update the software over the cloud, so you could still continue to engage with it. Similarly, in terms of the lighting design, we don't have any facility to update the lighting design, but in terms of a maintenance perspective, we're looking at DMX, so any theatre technician should be able to engage with that style of lighting. And then in terms of the actual, the actual computing and things, that's the next unit of computing. It's quite a cheap, self-contained unit. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Just one final thing I'll add is that is an assessment at this stage. There is also the final stage of approval in the public art process, which is one that is to be approved by the general manager community. And if it is approved today, and if there was any indication of any kind of change in what the maintenance cost might be, that is something that it can be brought back to this committee if need be. Okay. So, otherwise it would be, at the moment, it's to be met with an existing budget.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I've indicated that I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation. If there is are you seconding, Councillor Casson? Thank you. Are there any other questions? No? We'll go into debate, and as the mover, I'll just start off anyway. And I just have to say that the project is amazingly exciting, and it's totally in line with what we're trying to achieve with the river plan in terms of engaging the public at the riverside. And the drawings and even the scale project, I'm sorry, that scale project does it no justice whatsoever, because the scale and the way that the lights and the electrical components, the interactiveness of that, where you can go past and it will see that you've gone past and create colours, and how sound may also be used to create colours on a well, it'll be as high as this, nearly, it's quite high, isn't it? So, yeah, so if you can imagine that, councillor, something as high as this ceiling here in a beautiful shiny metal with all of those amazing interactive lights, it's going to look quite different from the model that you've just passed around. But also I want to say the reason I'm so supportive of this going on is because it's exactly these kind of partnerships that we need at the city level to achieve common goals around public art. We can't do it on our own. We haven't got the money to do it on our own. We don't have the expertise. And if we can educate people in the process and get them to buy into public art, to me it's even more exciting. And look, I very much hope that, and I understand that you want it installed if that can be done in a practical sense in the right spot down by the river plan for Matariki next year and have some sort of launch, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very exciting. It dovetails in nicely to the purpose of the museum as well in terms of cultural events such as Matariki. So I think it's all a win-win, to be quite honest, and I just want to commend you heartily because I know that you wouldn't say this of yourself, and I know there are other people on your team, but you have been instrumental in driving this project and seeking all the partnerships that you named before, and you're to be commended for that because there again, this probably wouldn't have happened without your involvement.
Oh, thank you, but it is a partnership project.
I know it is a partnership, but I'm also aware that, you know, there needs leadership, and you're here today, and I'm commending you and the team for your leadership in this. And had a really good conversation with Mark Flowers at Wintec, who sees this as a prototype for projects to come, other community improvements to come, not just public art, but other ways of working collaboratively with the City Council. That's very, very exciting to me, so that's why I'm very happy to move this today. Thank you. Councillor Casson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thanks for the report, guys. Hey, look, this sort of stuff's fantastic. I think there has been a significant improvement of late in public art, and I think we have a little bit of a point of difference to. We're getting a point of difference to some other cities where we're getting a lot more public art. We're getting the sculptures, we're getting the building art around, a little bit like what Dunedin and Christchurch you got the building art. It's fantastic, and I take it that the real one won't be able to be destroyed so easily by the mayor either.
One hopes not.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We are going to put it to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, I've moved it. James has seconded it. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much for coming in again. Looking forward to the next step. And you know what? I've just got back from Melbourne, as I'd said before. I had a wee break before the LTP. And I think Hamilton should hold its head up for some of the artworks that we have in public spaces, including NEC, the Boone Street Festival. Our murals down some of our places are just first rate, and having seen what Melbourne offers, I don't think we could be ashamed of what we're achieving. So, yeah. Thank you very much. Melbourne's got 4.4 million people as well, so, you know, we do pull above our weight in some ways. Who have we lost? No.
Sean Murray.
Sean, we do need Sean for this next report. Is he right there?
Leanne's doing that now.
Yeah. Okay, we don't have the parks guys either here, so we'll just... Oh, look, here he comes. Perfect. No pressure, but you're up. So, councillors, you'll find the report on page 41. And Jason's still with us in here, so... Oh yes, do come forward. Do come forward.
Sorry about that, Chair. Caught me by surprise. Look, if I just make a couple of introductory remarks to the report. Initially, the report was all about the regular annual report from the Clarence Street Trust, and the topic, however, has moved on to its future. Sorry, I just catch my breath. The primary issue really for the theatre is how it shores up its structural stability, and particularly in the back area of the theatre, and the need for funding. In terms of the activity of Clarence Street, they've fulfilled all their obligations to council and have filled a particularly important role following the closure of Founders Theatre. And without Clarence Street Theatre being in the position it's been in, it would have been a very, very difficult life for the city in terms of the performing arts theatre. So we've been very fortunate that it's been in place from that point of view. So I think with that sort of introductory remark, I think it's a matter of just opening up for any questions that you may have, particularly with regards to the latest proposition that's come through from the Trust, where they are seeking $150,000 in support in order to keep the back of house area safe for its users.
Thank you. And to note that Mayor King has moved a motion, and are we going to be could we put up the motion that I think it's worth putting up so you can see what you're being asked to consider. Just get a yes, I'll get that, and a seconder for that to make it a motion for consideration. Just getting it up. I'm happy to second it to get it up for discussion. Leanne? Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we're going to take questions, but if you can see that recommendation, you can see the one in the staff recommendation too. But as Sean has acknowledged, things have moved on in discussion over the last few days. So this is a position which, Sean, I think I'm right in saying you're comfortable with.
Yes, I am.
Right. So I'll take some questions at this stage. Mayor King.
Do you want me just to explain the background here?
Yes, please.
So basically, the theatre have come to us. They've asked for. Originally, we put up $150,000, up to $150,000 for earthquake rating. The only earthquake rating that needs doing to the building to bring it up to 34%, which is a minimum required, is in the area where they're talking about doing the work, because that drags the whole building down. So once they get that up to 34%, the whole building, the rest of the building will all be 34% or better. And they've asked, they want to get started on the work, and they want to know that the money's there when they finish the work and get code of compliance. So council signed it off at 34%, and the engineers, they want to know that the money will be there to pick up. So if it's less than 150,000, they'll only pick up what's required. If it's more than 150,000, they'll find the difference. And in the original offer of the 150,000, it was 150,000 or 20%, whichever was the lesser, for them to pick up the 150,000 at 20%. It would be over $1 million spend, and that's not realistic. While the trust, the last year that we ran this building, it ran at a deficit of $413,000, not million. That's what it cost the council, and these guys are doing it at no cost to the council. They're running it responsibly. We gave a grant to start with of about $75,000 just to get things moving, and they've got a bank balance of a similar amount now, which is a very healthy way to run a business. They've got a buffer there should things get tight or they need to spend, and it also shows that they're not burning the money up that they've got there. They're rolling it over, which is how a healthy business should run. So I think we should be really pleased with the way these guys are running it, and it's a matter of them getting this up to a level where the trust is comfortable with children being under that roof. At the moment it's below 35 and 34, and I'd just like to bring it up to 34. So that's what the motion's based around, those discussions.
Thank you, Mayor King.
Discuss this with the general manager as well, just so that he has an understanding of it. And maybe I'll just hand back to the general manager first, just so that you can if there's any comment you want to make, Sean, on that? Or
Confirm you're not lying, man.
Look, no, other than to confirm what Mayor Andrew has said, the work needs to be done in order for the theatre to proceed. In my view, the city needs the theatre to be operating, especially while we go through a few years of transition before a new theatre, if the Waikato Regional Theatre is to go forward. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a difficult one for us in that we have, we went through a major review of our theatres. We needed to rationalise and optimise the council's involvement and engagement in the theatres. We exited two, as you know, Clarence Street and the Meteor, but we exited it in full knowledge that the trusts that were going to be taking them over would be challenged by the condition of the asset. So we have to acknowledge that.
this isn't new money, this is the money that was originally set aside for the earthquake work, although they have gone outside their 12 months that we gave them to do it.
Look, it was originally planned within the time frame prescribed, but we don't have it budgeted anymore, so it would have to appear on our risk and opportunities register.
Okay, thank you. And look, just to acknowledge, Mayor King has taken that time to explain the recommendation, which I think was appropriate. We're now in question time, and we will get to debate. So if you can frame your questions, that would be great. Thanks. Councillor Mallett.
Thank you, and thank you for the achievement you've made with this project. Well done. Just a technical question, I think. I read that the deed of gift didn't permit you to encumber the thing with mortgages or things like that, and also talked about not sub-tenanting, I think. And I know this. I hope this will just be a technical issue, I assume. It says that you have actually got tenants: Hamilton Operatic Society, Drudgery Lane Dance. Oh, that's how it's spelled here. I think that's meant to be Drury Lane. Yeah. And the Cantado Choir. Just lift the concern off my shoulders that you aren't in breach of the
no,
deed of
we're
gift?
not in breach, no.
Oh, okay. So those are leases that you don't have when you have a lease?
Well, I guess they're not really proper leases in the fact that they're paying virtually nothing. Okay. So to be there, so it's not a formalised lease as such.
They're not permanent. They're not permanent subtenants of the business, and I guess the arrangement was that we didn't want the trust to be then putting it on to a whole new organisation, the whole property. The people that are like tenants there are effectively clients of the trust.
Yeah. Okay, so they're almost customers of yours.
Yeah, they are customers.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I've got a question from the report from Clarence Street Theatre Trust there with the key equipment parts missing, and it just made me think about when Founders Theatre closed, and it probably is a question for Sean, there must be some equipment that could be used by Clarence Street, by the theatre, that isn't used anymore. It might not be really old yet or whatever. I'm not sure. I'm just. There was just my thoughts.
Sure.
Sort of. What is there anything lying around that maybe Clarence Street could use? Or?
Look, there could be from time to time. Effectively, the theatre equipment that is managed by H3 actually is a pool of equipment that covers all the various council venues. So while there had been some equipment that was very specific to a venue, the bulk of it actually gets moved from one venue to another depending on need. So it's not like we had a full set of gear for Clarence Street, a full set of gear for Founders, and a full set of gear for Claudelands. Okay. When the gifting occurred for both the Meteor and for Clarence Street, we did, however, pull out a fair amount of equipment that was useful and suitable for the specific theatre, for Clarence Street. We acknowledged at the time that it was not necessarily 100% of what they would need at any given time, but neither do we have 100% of whatever is needed, and quite often we rent in equipment as well ourselves. The equipment that we provided to the Clarence Street Theatre Trust at the time of the handover, was tested, fully tagged, so it was quite compliant. and in our view was fully operable. And where there was, permits required for certain machinery or whatever, it was all fully certified. So in our view, it was in good shape. The question from time to time does come up, and if we have any spare surplus equipment that can be used, and if we do, we'd make it available. And I think there have been conversations that Jason's had with Sven, our head of technical services, on that. But just to remind you that the equipment that we do have within the H3 operation is a pool of equipment that gets moved around quite a bit. So Founders equipment, there wasn't a lot of base stuff there, as such.
So Clarence Street can still get to that pool if needed?
Well, it can if it's available, and we do hire it out because we look to recover costs from it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mallett?
Sorry, just a second point, and again, it's a little point. It's on page 43 of our agenda, J, and it talks about patronage numbers. It appears, and unless I'm getting my year ends wrong, that achieved year to date, this patronage was 6,240, which seems to be quite a significant drop from previously. Is that just a typo, or has there been a?
Must be. Yeah, that's not correct. I'm not sure. Where is it?
It's in here. I'd have to refer to the original report. It's just in there.
It might be just a transcription error.
I'm just looking for the numbers.
Sorry,
Look, it may be. I just have to really try and refer back to the.
So there hasn't been a huge drop off in patronage?
No, we've only been increased.
Yeah.
That's only a part year, isn't it, that you've got?
Yeah, it's only a part year, but I'm just sort of annualising it.
Yes.
Would appear to be
still less.
It may have been the first half of 2015 when HCC still owned the building.
No, it says achieved year to date 30 May 2017.
No, well that's.
Okay,
so I'm just looking in the.
Okay, so let's take some. Are there any other questions while that's being sought? No.
On that one, if I may, I just can't see it.
Anyone have any further questions on anything else? We can come back to that. Hopefully before the decision is moved. But I don't. But what you're actually saying is that you're tracking with increased increased patronage, right? That's what you're saying. But we're just.
Have been able to reconcile that figure, and it is correct. As per J on page 43, that is just for the year to date, as at 30 May. So that is the correct figure.
So you haven't got June, July, August, or June, July, or August in there because it's May. Yeah, that's right. So you've got 3 months less of the. Yeah. That's fine. It's part year.
So the year to date there is 3. So it's April, May, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you multiply that by 6, that would be 36 per year. Oh, yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah. There's always a seasonal variance, but it's within, so it's just 2 months.
Yeah, because presumably you get lots around the Christmas time with the end of
year and the first few months of the year, sort of January through March, is generally quite quiet, and then it picks up with the busiest part being later in the year, and then when we have the operatic productions, which generally 3 or 4 weeks, that's when we have a large increase in patronage as well.
Okay. And just a question about that 20%. So it was you were always going to get the 150 unless the project had been really hugely expensive overall, weren't you? Because then it would have been, because it's the lesser amount.
Yeah. Originally, our gift was based on the Meteor. In fairness to everyone, it was sort of based on that, was my understanding. And their gift was based on, I know their earthquake originally, the earthquake strengthening was based around that 150 or the 20%, and so that's why we got that as well. The reason it's different now is because our strengthening fact would be much greater.
So a question from me, in terms of this will allow that, because I absolutely agree that we've got to have this theatre carrying on. This will keep you in business for the next 5 years or a little more, and you've got a bit more time to do the rest of the earthquaking to bring it up to public place if the theatre continues to exist in its current form, and all of those future things that we haven't yet determined or haven't yet been determined. Is that right?
Yeah, it's I guess from from a legal standpoint, once we've done this work, we're done.
We're done.
You know, and
Okay, cool.
however, I guess from the trustees' point of view, they want to investigate further, like taking the theatre to a higher level. Not only, I guess, for future proofing, but also, I guess, for peace of mind for the public as well as themselves. But that's something that once we have this back of house area completed, then we can look at in more detail how we can tackle that. And we've already had discussions with BCD, the engineers, of various options, and that's what we'll work through once we've completed this stage.
Okay, thank you. All right, no more questions, so we'll go to the debate, and Mayor King, as the mover, gets to speak first.
Good, thanks.
You feel good?
Yeah, I think
Any other,
the messenger-
as the seconder, I'll just say that I'm quite happy to support this recommendation, because I think it was the amount that was always promised to the theatre to carry forward. It's just been a matter of timing, and as you say, a few hurdles to cross to get there. So I think it's appropriate that you get the amount that council promised to you to do it, and it's our people, our city people, that we're keeping safe in the back of the theatre. You do an awesome job with the picking up what you've had to pick up because of the closing of Founders, and I know you're heavily used by the community sector, so I really appreciate that, allowing the fact that those users like Operatic and Drury Lane can use it is amazing, because otherwise they'd have nowhere to go. So it's that important. That's all I need to say. Thank you. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, I think I commend the Mayor for his work in terms of working through on this one, and shows that this Mayor is very supportive of the creative arts in this city. I also will be supporting this, obviously, and primarily want to pay tribute to Clarence Street, particularly in terms of how you've organised your governance. So you've got the balance of creativity, but you've got, as per this diagram, which is a really good summary, you've got the heavy hitters in terms of your financial management and your governance. I think that's important. This is obviously an excellent community facility, and I think to our comms team, however, we should be unapologetic in communicating with our residents and ratepayers that this council actually is providing significant support to the creative performing arts in this city, albeit the people on the ground, like the good people at Clarence Street, are doing the bulk of the work, obviously, but in terms of funding support and moral support, I think it's important. It is not insignificant that this council chose to transfer the ownership and management of the Clarence Street and Meteor to the groups concerned, and we recognise totally that there was a hell of a lot of work by the people in those two places to get them up and running and produce this really good model, which is of great benefit to our community. As I've said, on the wider scale, I want the similar acknowledgement or focus around the support we give to the University Performing Arts Centre. And I think there is important that we, just as we support sports and a whole lot of things, we do let our ratepayers know where their cash and where their money is going. And I know a lot of parents who've got young kids involved in the Clarence Street Meteor Riverlea will feel really good that some of their rates are going in support of this way. I will, however, leave a final note, and this has got nothing to do with Clarence Street, nothing to do with Meteor or the university. I will be running my BDI and ensuring that the other major cluster of wonderful theatre activity, and that's Riverlea, also is treated equally and with similar approach to the other two. But without further ado, I totally support this motion, and I obviously join with the many others in congratulating the Clarence Street Theatre Trust in terms of the leadership and the wonderful opportunities, particularly for our younger people, to be involved.
Thank you. Councillor Mallett.
Thank you, and I also want to congratulate Jason, and thank you very much, Sandra, for the work you've done. This is a good model because it more closely approximates the private sector model, where you are subject to the laws of cause and effect, and you respond to your customers, you respond to the market, not perfectly, because there's elements of our hands are still in there. But I thank you for the work you've done, and this model has worked at the Meteor and appears to be working with you guys too. So thank you for that. There are significant savings to the ratepayer, and I don't see any significant loss of level of service to the ratepayer or the citizens through this model. And all power to you. Thank you very much for your efforts. Very happy to support it.
Councillor O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, pretty much everything is being said, but I just wanted to say that congratulations to what you've achieved, and you've done a fantastic job. It's really nice to hear acknowledgement around the table now, because I do remember back when we started talking about gifting the Meteor, how it was, the sky was going to fall. But then as we worked through the process and elected members understood that actually, we need to give the community a chance to do it better. There are some things that we do really well and other things that we need to acknowledge and admit that we don't. And I think that the report on your patrons' attendance, I would say at a hazard a guess, even the numbers and the income you're receiving from the bar is probably a lot better than what it was when it was under our management. And it's just become, the strength of your board, your trust here, Sir Richard O'Brien right at the top there, and then all of those pretty amazing people underneath is something that needs to be celebrated and you need to be congratulated on. Very much look forward to Mary Poppins. I know it's not in Clarence Street, it is in Claudelands, but it is what the Operatic Society is doing. But yeah, look, congratulations, and I hope that the work doesn't uncover any unsightly asbestos or anything like that. These things always, surprise us, but I'm sure you'll handle the project really well, so very happy to support this.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments. So, Mayor King, your right of reply? No? Okay, so we're going to put it to the vote. We'll do it. Well, I haven't used it all day, but we should do the voting button.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you, and thank you very much, Jason, Sandra, for coming in, and we look forward to the next performance. I have to say that excuse the words in council, but that Bloody Woman, the play was absolutely awesome. I did not realise that a show of that scale could work so well in there, and it was a big show with big voices, and it was great. Yeah. Okay, so thank you, councillors. We're on our lucky last, which is the playgrounds, and then we'll take a lunch break, and then we'll be on our way to the pools. Yeah. Thank you.
I'd just like to start this morning by introducing Hannah, who I've got with me today. Hannah is our project leader for playgrounds on the 4th floor in Parks and Open Spaces. So we're here today with our report to seek the approval for the apportioning of budget between 2 playgrounds in Flagstaff North, a destination type larger playground at Haripuki Park and a neighbourhood type smaller playground at Te Huia. We've come back to you today because on the 16th of May, in principle, the committee supported the apportioning of budget, and the external funding plan was approved on the 8th of August. We have been away and done some work, and you'll see that there's some concept plans at the back of the document. So I think everybody will have read the report and it kind of speaks for itself, but as a reminder, the proposal was to apportion $150,000 to Te Huia and just over $1 million to Haripuki, with $250,000 external funding being sought.
Okay, so just councillors, Councillor Taylor has proposed an amendment, but of course there is no motion up at the moment, so it can be the motion if he prefers to do it that way. You understand, Councillor Taylor? Yep. Do you want to move that as a motion, or do you want, because there is nobody has...
To him, but I'm not going to move what's in here.
Okay, so what would come first, please?
But he can, yeah.
Yeah, he can. So ask him.
The person that offered it first is the person that puts the motion.
Yeah, so you need to... So there's a motion. Can you please put it up so people can answer? Oh, thank you. It's just coming up. And then we'll talk about what the differences are. And then we'll go to some questions. And
quickly, just...
So seconded Dave McPherson. And presumably, Angela, you're in the wings as a...
Once, Madam Chair, once councillors have read it, I can just very quickly...
Sure. Just give us 30 seconds to take that in. Okay, so in the same way that Mayor King spoke to us, just to describe what you're trying to achieve here, because this is not debate, and then
Sure.
we can put questions around it.
Absolutely. So this may not be the finished product, but it certainly, I think, the aim is to stimulate discussion. It reflects my view that I don't support the destination playground concept. I don't support spending up to $1 million on a single playground, and I would prefer us looking at a number of neighbourhood playgrounds, and this motion would give us the opportunity not just to look at Te Huia Reserve and Haripuki Park, but also possibly other areas in the northeast that are looking for smaller playgrounds as well.
Okay, thank you. So let's go into questions.
The question to Councillor Taylor.
Absolutely.
So your intention with B is to look for, is just to ring fence the 500,000 and to look for, because there may be 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, questions. I've got a list of questions. You were up there as a question. Have you got questions, Councillor Taylor?
No.
No. Okay, Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. First question is, when we moved a resolution a short while ago to approve a portioning of the budget between the two parks, where did the idea of putting 90% of it into one budget and 10% into the other park budget come from? Because that's my understanding of the meeting. My memory of the meeting was that we didn't say exactly even, but it was they were roughly being talked about as even, and this is two, not just uneven, two totally different types of park, which was different from what my memory is that was sort of half-size destination playgrounds, sort of was one comment that was made.
So I think that the reserves themselves have dictated a little bit, or to a degree, what we would propose. So the Te Huia Reserve is quite a skinny, narrow piece of land, and it doesn't lend itself to anything more than what we have proposed in the concept drawings. The Haripuki is proposed to be the bigger site, which is closer to a destination as we know it, which provides the ancillary features for families to gather and spend more than a couple of hours.
But that's not really the question I asked, because that's not what we discussed at the last meeting, was it?
My understanding was that it was a smaller site at Te Huia.
It was, I can recall, I don't know whether you can, the specific question about whether a half-sized destination park would fit in at Te Huia Park, and the answer was yes.
Yes.
Well, I suppose it would. I guess the question is whether, in that, if anyone can recall from the discussion, how specific we were about the apportionment and size of. We did agree that we were, in principle, doing smaller playgrounds, and we were spreading the love across the city where it's needed. So we did agree with that. What precisely did, apart from that, what precisely did we agree on in terms of
the
funding?
wording's here. In the start, see, Madam Chair, because you've interceded there, I would like to make the point that I think this is what's come back is quite different from what we talked about.
That's what I'm
before.
trying to find out.
Yeah.
Do you want to comment
There
on
was
that?
clear discussion that Destination Park in this circumstance was not what we were after. And now we've got it was described just now as an almost destination park and a neighbourhood park. And if we'd known that was going to happen, we would have perhaps asked, or were going to be suggested, they asked for a briefing on this so we could thrash it around them. It's quite hard to understand where this is coming from in the middle of a formal meeting. So I'll make some more comments later in the speech, but I don't think this is what we asked for. But the second one was the consultation. What was actually put out for consultation? Because I haven't seen the documents. Was it this particular proposition? Was that what was put out for consultation?
Yes. Yes, we asked whether, and it was shaped by discussions with the community, whether there was support for a neighbourhood playground at Te Huia and a destination playground at Harry's Hockey.
So it wasn't an open consultation then where people were asked without any proposal what sort of parks they would like and which parts of the northeast?
No, it was quite specific.
Okay, so again, I'll refer to that again in my speech. I think it's odds on if you put out a consultation document through you to the general manager that suggests one outcome, and it's playgrounds and it's a service thing for the public. Of course, you're going to get the overwhelming majority of people supporting that because there's no other alternative. And I would question whether that's proper consultation. If I'm sounding annoyed about this proposal, that's probably because of the answers we've had confirming what I suspect there. The next thing, that question is there a map around that we could look at now of the northeast that shows where existing playgrounds are and where these two are, so we can get a picture of where in the whole northeast area they are? Because I think that's something I'm trying to discover from you, the context within which these parks are proposed to be provided, the geographical context.
So I guess the original context was provided by the Playgrounds of the Future plan and all the work that went into that document.
What year was that?
That was
roughly
3 years ago.
And did not, at the last meeting we had, this council discuss a different way of looking at playgrounds?
For the future LTP discussions, yes.
Yeah, so given that it's proposed that this be part of the LTP, where's that context for us, the geographical context?
We haven't got them here today, the maps, but there are the maps that were worked through the Playgrounds of the Future plan, which determined where best.
That was 3 years ago. We've got a new council now, and this council clearly, at its meeting, did it not signify it wanted something done a bit differently. So how can I make a decision today about this proposal of the staff's without knowing if there are any other gaps in the northeast where we've got existing parks? I mean, I know some of them because I take my grandkids to them, Callum Bray for one and Discovery for the other, but I don't know whether there's any more, and that's an area that very shortly will be full with, I think it's 25,000 odd people.
So we've got a couple of things that are on the Playgrounds program. So we have the renewals program and the improvement program that goes along with, that takes care of the likes of Tauhara and Discovery. And then we had the program to determine where the new builds were. So there is method in the madness, if you like, in terms of setting out where they are. It's not something that staff just say, we'll plonk one here and we'll plonk one there. There was quite a bit of research that went in.
But didn't you think, after the response you got at the last meeting, that we should start looking again at the whole thing, or have you just reverted back to the plan from 3 years ago?
So with all due respect, that wasn't asked for at the workshop, so it's a little bit difficult to land that on staff here. I hear what you're saying, and you can certainly make the point,
What we've got
Dave.
is also not what was asked for at the workshop either, so
we can hear from some other councillors may have a slightly alternative view to
They
that,
may do, but I have asked for a specific piece of information, which was something that gives me a geographical context.
And I respect that, and I think that that's fine. I just don't think it can be produced here, and it wasn't asked for at that workshop.
Well, the other thing, though, that the staff have referred to 3 times now is the what do they call it? Parks for the future?
Playgrounds of the future.
Playgrounds for the future. So where's that document if that's what's driven this? Because I think that's got some maps or planning in it, from memory.
It does, and I'm saying that wasn't asked for at the workshop and we can't really put it on staff to produce it now, but you do raise it as a good point. So I'm not trying to take away from your point, Dave, I'm just trying to
Well,
say
is it possible to get, is there a link that we could get it up or something like that if we wanted to look at it?
I think it's on our website, so.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
So that's all for just now?
Yep, thanks.
Councillor Gallagher?
Constructively here, I'm probably going to position where I'm maybe not voting on either of the amendment or the motion.
Just questions at the moment, though.
Well, no, but I want to give this as a context for my question, because from a governance point of view, don't feel that I have sufficient overview and appreciation. Now, I apologise, I know our East Ward councillors will logically have a very micro detail of the area, but I think, can I just ask, in future, I think what we should do is we should always have a format. I've got the attachments, and I should have rang you before the meeting. I'm so sorry that I think the maps would have been really useful, because the geographic maps, I guess my question is along Councillor McPherson's lines, that we've got if you like, a pool of budget, of money, which may or may not survive the 10-year plan. May or may not survive the 10-year plan. I mean, this is at the early stage in my view, and what I'm trying to sort of work out is, and it comes back, I think, to that workshop, is in the discussion we had, you know, the high-level destination playground, one high-level destination playground, and this is what I think Councillor Taylor's getting at, versus what I thought we were talking about was the alternative of trying to reasonably cover more spots with a sort of second-tier type playground. And I think you've done it in one area, Te Huia. So I guess if we go with your recommendation, in that area, what other areas would be waiting for playgrounds? So this is an issue of where you put your money and how you put your money.
And a lot of that is tied in with the rest of the LTP debate in terms of which parks do we develop as full sports parks, which parks do we develop for amenity, or do we develop any of them at all? And I guess it's kind of the chicken and egg situation. If you're deciding in isolation to put playgrounds at those places and then the funding is not available for the development of them, it becomes more of a difficult conversation.
But I think my feeling, and I might be wrong, and this is not being anti-destination playgrounds, it's really saying what we've got is fantastic, but we're just trying to get the best outcome within our limited funds for as many neighbourhoods as possible. This is not being anti-destination, this is about maximising, you know, local community amenity. And I'm wondering, is there, in terms of this report, what kind of reflection did you do of other approaches? And because obviously I've got a motion from Councillor Taylor that I've got to pull over in my own mind. I'm wondering what your perspective is.
I guess the perspective that we took is that this funding was already allocated in the current 10-year plan, and that there were community expectations that came along with that allocation of funding. Completely understanding the forward position, but trying to balance that with what the community had already expected was where we were coming from.
And just, wasn't it, just to refresh me, but didn't we have in one of the LTP workshops, didn't Sally come and give us a complete overview of what was, what the pressures on parks and open spaces was? I thought we had that in a workshop. Did we? We did. We did have that overview of all of, because actually there's a lot of money sitting in there. But anyway, carry on.
And you know, being constructive, I think in future, if we, so I feel a little bit vulnerable today because I don't have the map with the dots, and I'm trying to work out the localities, because I'm trying to get this all in context. So I do believe that I am not, and I acknowledge I should have rang you yesterday. But the other thing too is, the other question I have with Sylvester Primary School, there's a mention about the school will not fence its car park. What will it fence?
The school will be fencing areas of the school, but the car park will be open for park users.
And again, this is again, I don't have the map, and I'm sorry I haven't done a recent Tiki tour, but this is about public space, taxpayer public green space, ratepayer public green space, and I'm not willing to commit to a deal that enhances the other part of this partnership until I know what that looks like in terms of public access. Now, if it's, the school will be fencing its building, plant and equipment, I get that, but I would want it to be making sure it's, and again, this is where I don't have the map. I'm trying to work out the way where the school green space playing fields for weekends, meets with ours. And do we have an idea if they're going to, what parts of their campus they will fence off?
I believe the area where the classrooms are will be fenced, and there will be access through the field area to the park.
Are you sure of that?
I'm not 100% sure.
No, and this is, again, I'm trying to be constructive because this is a critical, with respect, this is a new council, we're moving forward, we've got a new paradigm now. This is a crucial piece of information, because I'm not prepared to do a deal with a school until we have got them signing on the line the deal. So it's not about they will indicate they won't fence their car park. There will be a solid legal agreement. There will be a solid legal agreement. And I will want to send this one back until I actually get a better picture of how the school...
we leave that to debate?
No, this is, I'm just making this point because obviously the question asks, have you contemplated some form of formal memorandum of understanding which is, legally robust with the school, or at the moment is just they're giving us an indication that they're not going to close a car park, and with respect, we're not sure what exactly they're going to fence of their campus?
Their fencing is still being decided, like the final design of their landscaping and fencing is still being worked through, and we have discussed with the board whether a formal agreement around the car park is required.
And I want to get a playground off the blocks, trust me I do, but I'm not prepared now to pursue this funding allocation until such time as we have a better idea of that linkage and context.
I think that's understood, it can be made in debate. Councillor Henry.
Well, coming back, I'm just following on from what Councillor Gallagher says. With Sylvester Primary School, so they're building their own playground for the 5 to 10-year-olds within their school grounds, which will not be accessible to the public. Is that how I understand it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. That's a shame, because, we're paying for that school too as taxpayers. And why can't we work with the school?
So that's for debate.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. So we might have to... Can we have a chat to the school about this?
We have been working very closely with the school. The way the school is being rolled out is through a private-public partnership. There's a whole lot of schools across the country being developed in this way, so it's been very difficult to have kind of shared facilities with them because of the way that the school is being developed.
Okay.
Okay, so
Siggy's
still got questions?
I've got one more question. The other one is about the destination playgrounds. I just wondered, can they be built in stages?
Yes.
Okay, so that there would be a possibility if it doesn't fit into a budget, or just a certain amount will fit into a budget this year, and so it can be built. It doesn't have to be all at one.
And so that's absolutely the case, particularly with the external funding component. If we don't reach our target, we would have to make some changes to what is delivered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. Just a question to the GM. So this, or staff, this report is here because it's responding to the motion from the 16th of May. And then I missed the discussion at the briefing around the majority view to move away from destination playgrounds and look at something similar to where Councillor Taylor's going. But that's a separate, that's part of the LTP, is that correct? That's a separate discussion from today, even though it is where the majority sort of want to move to.
Yeah, that's the way we interpret it, yeah, the situation.
Yeah. So
hang on, Dave.
You got an out.
Notwithstanding the fact, look, I actually wasn't at the, there was a meeting that I wasn't at, so I've missed some of the context of this.
But this is simply responding to an outstanding resolution. So if the other option that the committee could have is somebody could move this discussion to LTP, and then that would cover off.
So this money's in this year's budget?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, the 900.
But somebody could do that. Somebody could move it.
They could, yes.
If they want, yeah. Okay, thanks. I just needed to clarify what we're actually talking about today.
Okay, thank you. Just note, councillors, there is an amendment up there which is the staff recommendation, which Angela's proposing, and just for a seconder, I'm happy to second that.
Madam Chair, I'm seeking procedural advice.
Yeah, fair enough.
I may move that this matter be held over, and I want some advice from our GM so that we still keep it within the frame of our discussions on the 10-year plan. I'm just trying to look at, I'm just asking a sequential advice. I'm not necessarily against the motion, by the way, but
so I think it's probably the response to that, Leanne, is something we might all need to know in terms of process.
I could move as a procedural motion that this item, the item business being discussed, and help me as referred, and I think it would be a specific tenure, a specific meeting, and staff provide additional information as requested, because I think there's a range of additional information that has now emerged, which we'd like to clarify.
Well, there's two ways you can do it, is go with Councillor Taylor's amendment, which you could add something into that effect about the relationship with the school and the deal there. Or you could, if you wanted to, is then it would defer actually do anything this year, defer it to the LTP, which is where, from the workshop a few weeks back, where we got the guidance that there was, majority general support for going away from destination playgrounds to more neighbourhood playgrounds, you could refer it to the LTP. It would just mean that the 906,000 then wouldn't be spent in the 17-18 year, and people that the team have consulted with around those two areas are going to have to wait a bit longer. So there's two ways you can go about this.
So we just need to get clarity on process. Leanne's going to make a comment because we haven't actually finished questions either.
Yeah. So because we have a live motion and a valid amendment on the table, the option that you're exploring, Deputy Mayor, is a procedural motion which takes precedence over other motions that are sitting on the table. In addition to the options that the GM just explained, procedural motion allows you to refer the matter to any other forum and or date. So, for example, you could refer it to a briefing, which might still allow for consideration in this 10-year plan, or you could refer it to the 10-year plan process, or a briefing for a 10-year plan that pushes it into those discussions.
Having said that, the motion as in front of us also, I think, would in effect provide for that briefing, except it's just specifying a quantum sum. Is that correct, Madam Governance?
I'll leave Councillor Taylor to talk to his motion, but that my understanding is that it's committing funding, as was the request from staff. It's capping the amount of that funding and asking for some additional information in respect of how that funding might be spent across more than 2 playgrounds.
Because I think
Hold that a minute,
Sure.
if that's okay, Jeff. Can we just declare that's your intent, just so we are not talking at cross purposes?
That is correct. That's
Thank
what
you.
it's intending doing.
Thank you, Martin.
my procedure, because I think we can, in debate, we can cover off
Okay.
the motion and the amendment.
Thank you all for that. Thank you for your forbearance on that. We'll go back to questions.
Notwithstanding Councillor Taylor's amendment, is that there's always
His is the motion.
Oh, the motion, sorry. It can still come back to a briefing, you know, even if that's passed as a motion, then there can be a briefing so that all the matters that elected members have raised can actually, you know, be discussed in that more semi-formal setting. So.
Okay, thank you. I think that's understood. We'll go to questions. Dave?
But a couple of things. I'd just like to say that's a good idea, no matter what the outcome is. I would suggest to the GM that we do that. Just following up Councillor Henry's two very good questions about the school playground itself, which you've said, and I'd sort of taken this out, inferred in here that it wasn't going to be open to the public, only to school kids during school time. Did we specifically ask the school to have that as part of our bigger playground or in some other way open to the public?
Yes, so we did discuss with the school whether there was a partnership opportunity in terms like the Deanwell model.
Like the what model?
Deanwell model,
yeah.
where it's half and half on the boundary. They had told us that because of the funding model they were using, their designs were what they were and we couldn't change their footprint to the level to require that.
And you accepted that response?
Well, yes, we did.
Okay, because did you not think of just up the road, the Rotatuna High School model for the recreation centre, where the design was done very late in the piece, in fact finished only a couple of weeks before the construction started, and it was a joint design between public partners and the school?
The school was very adamant that when we met with them a couple of times that there wasn't any room for movement on that front.
Okay, there wasn't any room for movement on that front, even though that had been discussed as a possibility here at council, or in fact a preference at council here, and it was not thought to bring it back to council or to elevate it higher in the council hierarchy.
I guess, Dave, to be fair, we can take that up. Staff have been clear in saying they did what they thought they could do and they got that response. Right. But I do understand your frustration with it, and where we do go next is a relevant point.
Absolutely, and especially since the feedback we've been getting from management is that the Ministry of Education has been excellent to deal with at Sylvester School. What we're hearing now is that perhaps not so excellent. We can share the car park, but not the playground.
Okay, so can you make those points in debate and?
Yeah, I will, but I want to refer to the plan. I've been referred to the playgrounds of the future plan. I looked up the map that's in there, which is more like, not to be offensive, but it's more like a cartoon. It's a drawing. It's not an actual map or a plan, and it doesn't show the very area of the city that these two playgrounds are proposed, does it? They're off to the side, out of the picture. Yeah, so, and it doesn't say...
Hang on, did you want to respond to that? Are these two areas included in the playgrounds of the future maps?
Tahuia is identified on that map as a destination playground.
Well, then you've got a different map from me, because I'm looking at the one that's...
It's in the list, 1718 year.
No.
Tahuia.
Oh, it's there, sorry, Tahuia is. The other one's not. Yep, it's the two different maps. Okay. And it doesn't say whether the neighbourhood playgrounds listed with little orange stars are existing or to be built, proposed.
They would be existing.
Every single one of them, because there's one on the corner of Gordonton Road up near Thomas Road, which I'm pretty sure is not existing. Sorry?
Moonlight Drive Reserve.
No, that's not Moonlight Drive Reserve, that's different.
Okay. Oh, yep, I know the one you're talking about. And
it's right on Gordonton Road.
Yeah, it is there. Te Toi Toi.
So but it's not on Gordonton Road.
The park does front Gordonton Road, but you get to it from the subdivision.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So all of the others are existing. Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor, these questions. Yeah.
Yeah, Madam Chair, is it possible for me to add a C to my motion?
It's your motion,
Which may
and
just help.
with the agreement of the seconder.
With the agreement of the seconder, that this council review the playgrounds of the future plan. I don't know if we need a time frame for that, but prior to LTP discussions.
Okay, so you need a seconder, and then I'll ask
Well,
staff
no,
I'll ask staff to make a comment on that, just in case there are any.
You'd normally ask the seconder if they want to, accepting it.
I just said that. So, yeah, so I said I was going to ask the second, and then I was just going to ask the staff to comment if there were any concerns or pitfalls with that you just wanted to draw attention to.
Well, it really depends what you mean on a review. If you want to go out to public consultation and review the whole plan and that sort of thing, then that's not going to happen in the next 8 weeks. If you want to review the list of projects that we do, we generally do that through the annual plan and the LTP anyway, because generally these plans give guidance or policy guidance, if you call them a policy, but the projects, at the end of the day, council makes the decision on which projects it wants to include for funding. And our history with playgrounds has been that we've generally had strategic direction on that, but there's been other nuances that have come in, and then that's influenced council's decision-making process around where funds are allocated. I think maybe what you're referring to is, could we have a look at the program of playgrounds as part of presenting back to the LTP? Yes, we can do that. And I think with one of our LTP workshops, then we can have a discussion around that. And I think Councillor Davis brought up a good point around you probably want to see a geographic map of that too, and see the science around it about where the need is and where there are playgrounds, where there's gaps, and all those sorts of things.
Thanks, Lance. I think that would be appropriate. That would sum it up, I think.
So the wording would look like, we need to get that correctly. Are you putting something?
I'd say review the playgrounds development program. Use those words if you're comfortable with that.
I am comfortable with that. Thank
Councillor McPherson, comfortable? Can we get that up?
What Democracy has given us a link here to Playgrounds of the Future. What is that document? Is it a plan? Is it a policy? Is it a?
It's a plan.
Time frame? Is it a timetable? What is it?
It's a plan with an indicative program, which is subject to council making specific decisions on funding.
So it doesn't carry any weight at all?
It's a plan
well, it does. It provides some guidance, but at the end of the day, council can always override, unless it's a statutory document or something like that, council can always override its guidance documents or plans how it sees fit.
So did it go to...
Especially if circumstances change over time.
Did it go to public consultation?
I think it did.
So does that lock it in any way, or is it still just a plan?
Well, I think it'll be... there'll be council expectations, public expectations, but are we contravening the Reserves Act or anything like that? No. Local Government Act, I'll probably have to get some advice from Leanne on that.
So hang on, just for clarity, so all councillors are not confused. My understanding is that this was a plan, it was one of those 5 key plans that the previous council developed and formally adopted as a go forward for playgrounds. So all of the councillors that were previous on council would have been party to a democratic decision, whether they voted for or against it, in the last term. Was it the term before? Last term?
Last term.
Last term. Okay, so it would have been fully debated, fully worked up, and gone to a meeting like this, a council meeting, and been voted on by council and obviously adopted. Am I correct? I am correct. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've done a lot of questions and debate, and
you're not quite correct in the sense that that's not what's been followed, because what was actually in that plan, I've just been looking at it again, it was voted on, but it was voted that Te Huia Park be a destination playground, and that's not what's coming back to us today.
Yeah.
16th of May meeting.
That's
well,
right.
that's what
but
we
asked. I was just answering, getting my head around the question that Mayor King had raised about what was this Playgrounds of the Future and how did it come about? That was all. But you make a point, and you'll make that in your debate, I'm certain. So we are going to go to debate, because I don't think we can gain any more clarity from the questions. Councillor Taylor, you're the mover, so if you would like to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Paula. Yes,
Yes, that's right.
Yes, I don't support the destination playground concept that the previous council adopted. I think basically I have a philosophical issue with it at a time when this council is facing a difficult financial future in the next few years. I just don't find it acceptable to be spending $1 million plus on one playground. I think that basically sends a signal of gold plating things. We're using someone else's money to do it, and to me it verges on obscene a little bit. Door knocking, I would find it very hard to look a ratepayer who's struggling in the eye and tell them that we're about to spend $1 million on one playground. I just don't accept it, and I think a lot of people would see that type of spending as cavalier. It is a discretionary activity, and I think we need to ask ourselves that are these the actions of a council that is being careful with its money and that is aware of the financial commitments that are looming for us? And I don't think it is the action. So it may have seemed appropriate in the previous term, but I think in the current environment we're in, I don't think the concept of large-scale, expensive destination playgrounds is acceptable at all. So I want to, and I think what we need to be doing is thinking laterally. Given our financial situation, we should be thinking about ways we can get things done in a more clever way to make the dollar go a bit further. And for me, that would be looking at smaller playgrounds, neighbourhood playgrounds. There could be a number of other areas in the northeast that are crying out for a smaller playground. So to me, this gives an opportunity for us to look at that instead of going for the gold-plated one-off. It's a better way to spend our money. So this motion, it does two things. One, it gives us, puts some money in there, which allows us to get on and build something in that area. And number two, it gives this council a chance to sit down and review its future direction of provision of playgrounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor O'Leary will speak to the amendment. I presume you want to.
Yeah, no, I do. I was just following the list. But look, I hold an alternative view because a priority for me is to provide free family activities for the city, and destination playgrounds, hands down, do that incredibly well. I want to stay the course with our Playgrounds of the Future plan. It's a great plan, and I want to continue to roll out destination playgrounds. I think, look, the reality is for the people of our city, and that destination playgrounds at the lake, the gardens, Claudelands, Minogue Park are incredibly loved and incredibly well used by thousands and thousands of families every single weekend. They can handle large numbers, and they actually cater for a wider range of different ages of children and also different abilities, including children with disabilities. You can't get all of that and pack all of that into a smaller neighbourhood playground. I think the Steel Park playground is an example. I think that's a neighbourhood playground, and that can only cater for toddlers. The other, yes, destination playgrounds, I agree, they are expensive, but not that $1 million is not just on that play equipment. That $1 million caters for the parents with the amenities that they have asked us for years and years and years. Probably hundreds of submissions to council, certainly way before me. Where are the toilets? Where is the car parking? Where is the shade for our children? So that we can spend the whole day with our families for free, doing a cost-effective activity and keeping our kids moving and keeping our kids healthy. So I can't remember the exact dollars, but certainly I know the playground down at the gardens, I think the toilets were 150, 180,000, if not more than that. So this is not $1 million, certainly not a gold-plated activity for the city. I think Councillor Taylor said it's someone else's money. Yes, it is. It is someone else's money. It's the ratepayers' money. It's those parents that use those playgrounds that can't afford to take their kids to the movies. It's those parents that are on from lower socioeconomic areas as well that can't afford to go and hang out at a shopping mall and want to go and spend time with their families and with their children of all ages, of all physical abilities and of disabilities, to be able to spend the whole day with toilets, with car parking and with shade. I think some of them have barbecues as well. So that's what's important to me. I will not be moved from that direction. I have seen the destination playgrounds working incredibly well. I think we should be selling it as an activity for outside the region to come and spend a day and travel around our destination playgrounds. And I will not and cannot support any reduction. I know that is where possibly the majority of elected members are going to go, but I'm going to stay the course here. I've seen them, they're successful, and I don't want us to reduce free family activities for our city in times of actually quite financial difficulties for the groups that use them the most. So for those reasons, I am obviously supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. I'm going to go to the list now. Please identify, because we're taking the discussion at the debate at the same time, please identify whether you're for the motion or the amendment as we go. That would be useful. Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thanks. As the seconder of the motion, I do support it, you'd hope. This isn't about playground provision. I don't think there's a single person in the room here that doesn't support extensive playground provision by the City Council in the City of Hamilton. It's a question about scale, placement, timing and appropriateness, I guess, and what your priorities are in that mix. I think that to go straight for the Big Bang theory, which is the destination playground first, and then maybe later on, if you've got some money left over, do some others, is the wrong way to look at this. I don't actually have any problem with destination playgrounds per se. I would like one on every street, and I'm sure the parents would, but that's never going to be affordable, and certainly isn't affordable even to have one in each suburb right now. So what's the alternative? Do we put one destination playground in an area and expect our families to drive their kids to it? Or do we put a larger number, several neighbourhood playgrounds where the kids can walk to it, maybe under the eyes of the parents that are on the street? And I see that happen up at Discovery Park in this area. I see the kids walking down the street to it, sometimes with their parents if they're really young, sometimes by themselves. With the destination playground, they won't be able to do that. Those same kids that want to go to that will have to be driven to the destination playground, as happens elsewhere. And they're great when you get the kids there, but they're not easy to access compared with a neighbourhood playground. When we first brought in this policy, we actually started cutting out the low socioeconomic families from being able to use that. We had Karaka Park, because it had been damaged by vandals, completely stripped of all the equipment, so there was no park in that particular highly settled area of Norton. Sure, it's a little bit further away, and they now have a destination playground. They didn't have any playground for several years because we had a policy only of doing destination playgrounds, and we didn't replace that equipment. We had a hell of a fight down the road at Varden Park when there was a little bit of damage there, not much, and it was cordoned off by council, quite rightly for safety reasons, and council staff, because of our destination playgrounds, were no longer going to replace the 3 little bits of neighbourhood park equipment that were in Varden Park. We managed to get that changed despite the destination playground, because the mothers with their kids in that area said it's not convenient for us during the day with little kids to drive somewhere when we've got to pick up other kids from school or wait for them to come home from school to actually drive off to a destination playground. What's wrong? We've got a nice park next door to us or down the road. What's wrong with having a swing and a slide on it? And that's, that's what we should be doing first. I have no problems, and then Siggy Henry touched on it quite well, of phasing it in. Do your start-off playground in every neighbourhood within the 500 metres of where you live. That used to be our standard. And later on, if you get money or you get an offer from an outside funder, add to it to make it a destination playground if you want. But let's at least provide the basics everywhere. And that's the difference. The disagreement I had with the destination playground policy, we were chucking all of our eggs into one basket, and when we should have been spreading it across the city. I look at the plan and the whole report I'm dissatisfied by. I think Council clearly signalled, this Council, what direction we want to take, and I expected a report to come back that would reflect that. Instead, as we've heard, the report that comes back reflects a policy decided over 3 years ago by a previous council that we'd already said was not the direction that we wanted the report to come back in. It's still our decision, I know. But I would have expected staff to have come back with a report to reflect that previous decision and be spreading the money around to provide more neighbourhood parks. And that's why I'm supporting Jeff's motion there, because it's going to see that we get more parks, and I hope more still, not just these 2, but more on top of that, into areas. Then let's look at whether we can get Lions or the Potters Trust or whoever to talk about adding to that park and upgrading it further down the track. But let's not cut out areas just because we want some gold-plated parks right from the start.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Councillor Casson.
Yep, straight off, I'm not voting for the motion. I'm for the amendment. There's, unfortunately, seems to be a clear demarcation happening here between east and west, and it's unfortunate that Philip, Rob and Mark are not here as well. Look, I think you underestimate the depth of feeling and interest in the northeast for this sort of these sort of playgrounds to be there. There are public expectations now. I've been to several meetings now with the northeast community. The comment was made that we're using somebody else's money. Well, yes, we are, some, but you forget that some of that money is also the residents of that area of town. We didn't have a problem, this council didn't have a problem putting 1.25 million into a river project that only some people will use. I drove yesterday down Dominion Road at 2 p.m. and that destination playground down there was chocker with people, absolutely bloody full. And that sort of area in the northeast hasn't got any playgrounds. You see all the ones dotted around the map at the moment. In that Te Huia, Harry Puki area, there are absolutely no playgrounds. And there's a huge increase in population at that area with new housing, new development. And they've got absolutely no playgrounds at all. If we put a playground of that size out there, I have no worries at all that it will be used to full utilisation, a bit like Dominion Road. People won't mind driving a little bit down the road to use it. So, yeah, unfortunate. I think that the motion will get through, but yeah, I think you do underestimate the expectation and the want of the people out that area for playgrounds. So I find it very unfortunate, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casson. Councillor Gallagher.
It's unfortunate that 3 councillors can't be here, but if you felt if they would make a physical difference to an outcome, then obviously, the standing orders do allow a resolution to recommit a motion. I think, having said that, we do have another cut in this debate when we arrive at the 10-year plan process. It's ironic, perhaps we're putting a lot of passion into discussing something that's happening in year 3 of a budget allocation process. So I strongly suspect this is not the last cut of this debate, and I totally respect the finely balanced arguments. And I also want to pay strong tribute to the members of the Hamilton North East Community Trust and other groups who will be committing themselves to look at the end fundraising point. So I think there's 2 points, is what is the initial quantum of money that's allocated, but I, if you like, take a wide view at this stage, and I'm trying to maximise the use of ratepayer dollars to maximise recreational / playground type opportunities in the North East. And I think under C, when we review our Playgrounds of the Future plan, I'm hoping that will give me a more updated, better idea of the vision, because it's certainly what I don't want to see is, say, some reserve that is overgrown and can't be used adequately. So it's getting the bigger picture. It's not just playgrounds are but an important component of what are the recreational opportunities in the North East. It's not lost, without broadening this discussion too much, that north of the Allendale-based Puki Bridge, there's very little river pathway opportunities, for example, for the eastern side. So I raise that purely because I want to get the sort of the bigger picture of the total degree of recreational green space playground opportunities that we're offering in the North East. And trust me, I want to get the best deal possible for the northeast of our city. I think the learnings of this, and I've already apologised that I should have come to you a couple of days ago, perhaps in seeking that extra information, and I apologise for staff for that. I also defend staff in the sense that, with respect, staff can only be guided by a resolution of the council, and we have to be careful that just because we have some discussion in committee room number 1, that actually has no status. It's a flavour at the moment, but council are bound by a resolution even if it was passed by the previous council. What we've got to do as the new council is to really update all of our thinking, and so that we've got some clear lines in the sand. I think what I do want to find out perhaps under C, or when this comes back, is I need to get a better idea for the Sylvester Park School. What exactly are their bottom lines? Because I think we've had a good model with the Rotorua High Schools in terms of that partnership and cooperation. Does the so-called public-private partnership, and I'm sorry if I'm not adequately across that, does that sort of affect the mix a wee bit? So it's just really a matter of saying, okay, we're going to allocate X amount of ratepayer dollars here, but we want to make sure the taxpayer dollars are a synergy. And for example, taxpayers, I believe, should be entitled as of right to use their green space that they paid for. I can understand taxpayers will understand that you would fence off of some buildings to protect plant and equipment from vandalism, but the notion that schools can fence off their green space, which we have all collectively paid for, I think is very old thinking, and does not deliver the return for people's taxes that they can actually, because schools are a community space, they're a community place. Everyone pays for our state school system. The integrated is a separate issue, of course, and obviously we want to maximise the access to those school campuses. I will be supporting the motion. However, I do have a degree of diffidence about the quantum that's been put in there, and I fully expect when it comes up again in our 10-year plan debate, that quantum possibly could be played around with. The ironic thing, if I can say, when we do get to our 10-year debate, our frame may have changed totally, because we may be taking some very painful decisions of what we can afford. So here we're just totally focused on a destination playground versus a range of playgrounds. When we get to the 10-year plan, the debate and the discussion and the options and the choices in front of us may be a heck of a lot more limited. Finally, let's do everything we can to respect and engage with our external funders to try and add. So, if you put X from rates into a playground, but there's an external philanthropic funding that adds Y, then obviously you do get a better outcome.
Councillor Henry.
Yeah,
Just gonna
thank you,
go
Madam
myself
Chair.
there.
Yeah, I was just thinking, listening to everybody is just really amazing, and you change your mind every 5 seconds of whether to go, which way to go, and of course we want it all. I would love to have it all, but that's not possible, and we're going to look at it in the long-term plan, and I get that, but I want to keep thinking about it now, I would like to keep the destination playground alive, because I can see a bigger picture. Like Councillor Leary said, we can use it as a selling point for Hamilton as well, for people to come and actually do a tour of our awesome destination playgrounds. I would love some cafes close by, or some pop-up cafes. That would be really awesome for us mothers, so we can actually enjoy that too, having a coffee there. But it is something that I didn't, when our children were little, we didn't experience that. We went to our neighborhood playground, that was awesome, but having destination playgrounds close by within just a 5-minute drive is something really special as well. I know the money is tight, and we have to look at it at a long-term plan, but I just will, and I know there's a number of other areas that are crying out for playgrounds too, and but we have to keep it alive. And maybe we could look at some other ideas for cheaper toilets, like bamboo loos. I don't know whether you've heard of that. That's composting toilets. And putting vegetable gardens around it, and a whole lot of other ideas that just create some new experiences for the families, not just playground, but children can actually see other things being planted. Fruit trees, I would love to have some fruit trees around there. Just making it more, well, somebody want to make it clean green, so let's go for that. I think, did I hear that was some party that I listened to the other day? It was amazing. They've changed their tune. So I would just like to see that a lot more incorporated, that we just look at things a little bit differently, and maybe that can save us some money, which would be really awesome. Yeah, so yeah, the kids. Oh, the last point I just thought about is our children sit too much behind computers, and these playgrounds can put them out for a few hours. I will not. No mother will spend a whole day on a playground. I mean, she'll kill herself or the children. That's too long. With a few coffees, it might help. But yeah, just even a few hours outdoors will just get the kids more moving, more engaged in physical activity, and maybe we can have a few things for the adults too, to do some exercise with around there as well, so they can do exercise at the same time, just instead of sitting there and eating fish and chips. Thank you. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor King, and then I might make some comments as well.
I'm going with the local playground, where the kids could walk to it, where you don't have to get in your car and be taken there by your parents. One of my favourite T-shirts has got a swing and a slide on it, and underneath it says, "Bring back dangerous playgrounds." So let's keep it simple. Let's spread it out. Let's spread the money out amongst our parks. Last council was pulling out our local playgrounds, and I say let's put them back in. Let's put in the simple swing, slide, bit of rubber underneath so they don't hurt themselves when they fall off, and let's bring some fun back where the kids can go down with a ball to the local park with a friend with some simple equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to speak in favour of the amendment. Obviously, I seconded that. And for the following reasons. I think it's really important that councils fulfil some of the expectations of their community on a range of issues that they've previously consulted on. And yes, of course, we can review how plans are implemented. We just shouldn't ignore them. And the Playgrounds of the Future is such a plan. It did go out widely. I wasn't even on council at that time, but I remember it going out widely and being consulted on by the community, and they shaped that plan, and therefore they have expectations of it being given some attention. I agree with the comments around that area of Hamilton needing playgrounds as soon as possible, because it's pretty devoid of any play equipment in Flagstaff as it presently exists. the Playgrounds of the Future identified that the old-fashioned swing and slide doesn't get used, isn't a modern sort of playground that attracts usage, and so there's no point in just maintaining the very bare basics. People expect a total interactive experience at playgrounds, and that's what we must provide. Now, in terms of, we keep talking about the destination playgrounds. I don't think the amendment is inconsistent with the resolution of the Community and Services Committee at all. I think it picks it up. What we hadn't discussed is quantum of money and that kind of thing at the time, but we did make it clear that we did want to spread the love around the city and get more playgrounds, and for the short term that we were going to focus on other than destination playgrounds. But my understanding of this, of our Haripuki one, is that it's a matter of scale and appropriate size. It's not a destination playground, but it's a larger playground than the Tahuia one, A, because it's a larger patch of geography, and B, because it has a larger catchment of people that are going to use it. Lots of people will walk to this playground because it's a huge housing area with lots of families, with lots of teenagers and younger children as well. And I don't think we need C of the motion either, because I think through the LTP we will review parks and open spaces more broadly, because we've already acknowledged that there's a lot yet to do, and I also acknowledge my colleagues in saying that we know that money is constrained. But I'm very excited to see what we can do when we go out to the community with playground proposals, where private partnership can actually extend the possibilities for the locals. So this is what council can afford to put in, but if the community can raise some local funds in some way, we can put in additional pieces of complementary equipment, and you can grow your playground that way. And to me, that sounds like a very exciting future. So I think that's the main points I want to make. I believe that the amendment is consistent with the recommendation from the previous council. Let me just talk about the money. The one point I hadn't mentioned is that number 5 in the executive summary on page 32 of our report shows that the 900,000 was allocated in year 3, which is actually the current year. Yep. So that was the point I was going to make, because I heard it used as if it was year 3, out year 3. It's actually the current year. That money was allocated, and there's plan to seek, and everybody is fairly confident that the 250 external funding will be achieved. So that money is already destined for this area, and all we've done really is kind of adapt to the geography and possibilities, and provide 2 areas with playgrounds rather than 1, which I think is a win-win. Okay, thank you. So that's why I'm voting for the amendment. And yes, yep. So, and now, Councillor Mallett, you haven't spoken.
Thank you very much. And just want to respond to some. I think the staff have done as we expected. I think the staff have taken the recommendation made from the previous council and done the appropriate thing. But I think what's happened is the whole situation has changed dramatically. We have become aware of a gaping hole in our finances, and I think we need to respond appropriately. And I congratulate Jeff for the initiative to do this. I remind everyone that there is still a park going out there. It's just not as grandiose as it would have been. And I thank you for pointing out that this is actually our current financial year that we're talking about spending. So should the amendment be, should the motion be approved, that would be a saving of $500,000 for this financial year, which is a good step in the right situation, right direction. As I said, the financial position's changed. Also, you talk about priorities, and I've always been, pretty fastidious about this, that the first thing that people and families need is homes. And that is what we're talking about in the conundrum we've got with funding our growth. We do not have the funding at the moment to meet out the challenges that growth is imposing upon us. Most of that growth, not all of it, but most of it is growth in homes. That has to be our primary concern. Yep, and then once you've got the homes built, then you put on the amenities. But the first thing is to get people off this, and I'm not everyone, I'm not trying to over-egg this thing. This isn't keeping people off streets and that sort of stuff. But we need to make it affordable for families to get into homes, and our job is to put the infrastructure in. That is a cost that we must meet so that people can get into homes and we can get something that's close to an affordable home. So I think the priorities are we need to fund our growth first, then we look at the amenity issues, which is, this is your playgrounds and your libraries, etc. And I'm quite heartened by the fact that with all our other challenges, should the motion be approved, we would be starting off with a $500,000 surplus, so to speak, in that one particular area. So thank you.
Thank you. So everyone's spoken. You don't want to speak to this, Councillor Turman? No? Okay, then I go to the right of reply. That's for Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Paula. Councillor O'Leary talked about free family activities in the city. Well, it's not free. That's my message to you. This is not free. It's $1 million for one playground, which ratepayers are having to come up with. And Councillor Mallett made the point that it's in the current year, so there's $500,000 savings. And I would invite councillors to think about that, because in an hour's time you'll be walking around Waterworld wondering where we're going to find the millions of dollars to sort that out. So think very carefully about that, and think very carefully about, in this particular time, spending that much money on one playground. How it looks as well. I don't think it's a good look at all. I'm not proud of that. I think we should be making the money go further, and we should be looking at every effort to do that. Councillor Casson talked about the lack of playgrounds in the northeast. Fair enough, good point. But I'm not talking about not having any playgrounds in the northeast. I'm not talking about one playground. I'm talking about maybe having 4 or 5 in the northeast, which are in walking distance, more accessible to people. More playgrounds, not less. I'm not talking about denying families access to playgrounds. I'm actually talking about making them more accessible. But I'm talking about doing it in a more appropriate and sensible way at a time when we should be looking out for our dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote, which is the substantive motion. Sorry, you're right. It's the amendment, and should that be lost, we'll go to Councillor Taylor's motion. So you're for the amendment, right?
We have a hung vote.
Oh, my Lord.
In this situation, you have the choice to exercise your casting vote or not, or you can, if the amendment is lost, then the motion will be put.
Can you tell us all, please,
So I'm just talking about my, we were talking about my opportunity to use the casting vote.
We can't see it, but they can read it. It's a technological issue, not a privacy issue. So I'll ask one of the team to read the names out.
So for the motion, amendment, we have Councillor Henry, Councillor Casson, Councillor Tooman, Councillor O'Leary and Councillor Southgate.
Thank you, that's really useful. Look, so I can use my casting vote, and if I don't...
This is quite important. I'm not wanting to be critical, but I think it's really clear if that machine fails us, we immediately have the traditional, which you've just done, and then you read the people against. At that point, and only at that point, obviously does governance give advice to the chair in terms of where we go, because we were in the situation we had no idea. We were just sitting here, had no idea of the actual outcome. No, but yes, we did. It's on here.
It's on your script. So, yeah, and you've yes. Thank you, Councillor McPherson. That's completely right. So the outcome of the vote comes up on your
So it
screen.
doesn't come up on that screen, because that's where I look.
It's not, yes, it's not resolved at this completely. There's a further stage at this point because it's a hung vote. If the vote had been definitive, the names would have come up, and that's what you're expecting to see, Deputy Mayor. In this instance, because it's a hung vote and there's potentially a further step, the names don't appear yet. But councillors are entitled to ask, which has happened, and in that case my team has indicated who has voted for and who has voted against.
I just want to hear my name.
Right.
For transparency and as an automatic point of progress, I think that's a glitch, personally.
Okay, so
We should not be discussing that
yes,
in the middle of a vote.
yes. So I think that.
At the most, the governance manager should be outlining the options to you.
Well, that's where we're going.
And that was
So I was just about to say that. I think this can be taken offline. The technology has problems, and so I can use my casting vote. If I don't, if have you not heard the against? All right. Can you please read out the results one more time, and everyone needs to listen closely.
So the against, we have Deputy Mayor Gallagher, Councillor Taylor, Councillor McPherson, Councillor Mallet,
we shouldn't be having any conversation.
and Mayor King.
Okay.
Okay. So, Leanne, if I cast my vote, which I can do, what if I choose not to? What are the other options?
If you choose not to, at this point the amendment is effectively lost, so the substantive motion comes forward for voting.
Okay, I'm going to cast my vote in favour of the amendment, and in so doing, I believe I'm representing the views of some people who aren't present today.
There's no such thing in the standing orders.
No, but that's the way
I
I'm.
don't think those remarks are even in the minutes. I think it's quite wrong to say that.
I'm casting my vote in favour of the amendment. I'm using my casting vote in favour of the amendment.
So the amendment is one.
So the amendment now becomes a substantive motion and we'll vote again.
Can we try the electronic again?
Just
So go. I'll look at the screen this time. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
The substantive amendment is now one. 6-4, 4 against.
Okay, thank you everyone. That actually does bring us to the end of the agenda, and
Half an hour for lunch.
how do you feel about a half an hour lunch and then out to the pool? Is that sufficient? Okay. All right, let's make it a 45-minute lunch. Yeah, I know, 45-minute lunch.
So
we're
Dave
back.
and Jeff, you're not coming, are you? No. Is there anyone else not coming? Just so James, you aren't, Andrew, you're not? I just needed to know for numbers for transport. Oh, you're going to go yourself? Okay. Someone,
Yeah, and the
anyone need a lift?
and the media will be coming with us
Okay.
if as they wish.
So does anyone need a lift? Put it that way.
What time?
Say a time and a place where we're at, like specifically where are we meeting?
2 o'clock in the foyer at Waterworld. Yeah. In the front foyer, Gary.
We don't have to pay the owner.